Big, strong, powerful Donald Trump is chickening out of recognizing the Armenian genocide as a genocide right after a threat from Turkish President Erdogan. The Senate recently passed a bipartisan measure to recognize the Armenian genocide for what it is. It was a genocide. And this was passed as a foreign policy position. It was a rare bipartisan bill. The 1915 killings, where 1.5 million Armenians were killed by the Ottoman Empire, was a genocide. And that's what the Senate said, and that's what they intended to recognize. President Erdogan then came in and issued a threat saying, if you do that, Turkey will recognize the killing of Native Americans in retaliation. We'll talk about that later. And Trump has had the State Department reject the measure from the Senate, saying that no matter what the Senate says, the position of the United States on this issue is not going to change, saying, quote, this is spokesperson Morgan Ordhagas in a statement to The Hill. The position of the administration has not changed. Our views are reflected in the president's definitive statement from April. Now, if you go back to April, on April 24, that was Global Armenian Remembrance Day. Trump said that 1.5 million Armenians were, quote, deported, massacred, or marched to their deaths. And when you say that, anyone who understands the nuances of the Armenian genocide understands you are not saying 1.5 million were killed, and therefore you are not recognizing it as a genocide. When you say 1.5 million were deported, massacred, or marched to their deaths, you could be suggesting that of the 1.5 million, 1.499 million were merely deported, right? And that is why anyone who understands this issue understands that you've really got to look at the letter of what is being said here to understand it. Now, let's be totally transparent here and thorough. It's not just Trump that won't simply say the Armenian genocide was a genocide. For example, when Barack Obama was a candidate back in 2008, he said it was a genocide. And then when he became president, the administration did not support a resolution which said that it was a genocide. So this is a far bigger issue than just Donald Trump, of course. Now, as far as the Turkish threat to recognize the genocide by European settlers in the United States against Native Americans, that really shouldn't scare anyone. I mean, it is our history. It's what happened. Many countries have a very ugly history. Look at, I was born in Argentina. A lot of people say, David, why are there no black people in Argentina? It's ugly, right? I mean, that's the reality. And we can't ignore history. We know historically why there are no black people in Argentina. We know what happened here in the United States. The idea that people might not know that is disheartening, but it unfortunately may be a reality in some circles. And meanwhile, you have Donald Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas regularly. We here in Donald Trump are talking about the weakest self-professed strongman that we have maybe ever seen. He's a genius, but we can't see his grades, and he'll sue you if you release them. He's super rich, but we can't see his taxes, and he will hire lawyer upon lawyer upon lawyer to make sure that you don't see his taxes. He makes great deals, but he gets bamboozled by North Korea into thinking that he made a deal when in fact he got nothing. And on and on and on. Most of the details you've probably heard by now, but the big picture once again is that this guy professes to be one thing and falls embarrassingly short of that. And it's happening once again here with him being strong on foreign policy and American sovereignty, which anyone who's been paying attention would not be surprised by. But to some of his most ardent supporters, they see this, and it's the cognitive dissonance of your dog when they hear your voice come out of a speaker. A little bit of confusion and disorientation, I think is the way I would describe it. Let's take a quick break. I do want to talk about this totally fake staged interview that Ivanka Trump gave. And we've got to talk about the Afghanistan papers. Major, major story. Both of those and your voicemail coming up after the break.